Today, I've prepared for you a full IELTS Academic Writing Task 1 essay. You'll see the full sample answer, and I'll tell you how this essay meets requirements that IELTS examiners use to mark your essays. For this video, I've selected a task with 2 charts of different types, which was reported on one of the recent exams. And it is a common type of task today. While you're watching this video, think if you'd like to learn how to write essays like this yourself, and I'll tell you how you can do it. Here is our task. The bar chart below shows US seafood imports in 1986, 96 and 2016 and the forecast for 2026. The pie chart shows the geographical structure of these imports in 2016. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Write at least 150 words. And we have 2 charts. In the past, most tasks contained only 1 chart, but today it's super common to get 2 or even 3 charts. The bar chart shows seafood imports in 3 time periods in the past and the forecast. When you see a date in the future, it's always a forecast. The pie chart shows which countries import seafood in the USA in 2016. What you can see now is our essay structure. That's a classic Task 1 structure, and the first paragraph is your introduction. That's where you need to write 1 or 2 sentences introducing the task. Basically, you need to tell the reader what information you have in your charts. Quite often, we simply paraphrase the task. And here is my introduction. The graphs provide information on the volume of seafood imports in the United States between the years 1986 and 2016 with the prediction for 2026, and illustrate from which countries the seafood was imported in 2016. Let's compare it with the task. The task has 2 simple sentences. I've written 1 long sentence, but I've described information on both charts. Instead of saying the bar chart shows or the pie chart shows, I used the graphs provide information on. Instead of saying US seafood imports, I said the volume of seafood imports in the United States. I repeated the words seafood imports, and I'm going to use them throughout my essay. That's what this task is about, and it's okay to repeat those words. Don't force paraphrasing. Instead of 1986, 1996 and 2016 and the forecast for 2026, I wrote between the years 1986 and 2016 with a prediction for 2026. That was the description of the first chart. Let's compare the description of the second chart. The task reads, the pie chart shows the geographical structure of these imports in 2016. I wrote, illustrate from which countries the seafood was imported in 2016. I used the passive voice here. If you use different verb tenses and different grammar structures, you're gonna get a higher score for your grammar. I also have a separate video with more examples of how to write an introduction, and I'm going to link it in the description box below. The second paragraph is an overview. Write 1 or 2 sentences summarizing what you've learned. What is the most important thing you've learned? What are the main trends? Concentrate on the big picture and don't give any details here. Quite often, there are no figures in an overview either. Here is mine. Overall, seafood imports tripled over the 20-year period, with the top 3 countries controlling more than 2/3 of the market in the United States. In the future, however, import levels are forecast to shrink. If you read the overview only, you already know what's going on, right? That's the aim of writing an overview. Let me show you how I've done it. So, always start with the word overall to show the examiner that's my overview. Next, seafood imports tripled over that 20-year period. If you look at the first chart, you see that imports increased a lot between 1986 and 2016, from around 6 to 20 billion. So I've calculated that it tripled. You can make simple calculations. It's a good way to illustrate your point. I've mentioned years in the introduction, so I'm not gonna repeat them here. I just say that 20-year period. Here is my overview of the second chart, with the top 3 countries controlling more than 2/3 of the market in the United States. I will name those countries in my body paragraphs. What I want to say here is the top 3 countries import most of the seafood, and again, I've calculated it's 86% or 2/3. And the last bit. In the future, however, import levels are forecast to shrink. This is a reference to the forecast on the first chart. And again, I will give the exact number in the body paragraphs. Here, I want to say the imports will go down. And instead of using the word imports, I used import levels. It adds variety to the vocabulary. Have a look at the overview paragraph again. I've summarized all the information on both charts. That's important. Where should you write your overview? After the introduction, like me, or at the end of the essay after your body paragraphs? It's entirely up to you. Both are fine. Just remember, the overview is the most important paragraph of your essay. You are gonna lose a lot of points if your essay has no overview. That's why I suggest writing your overview after the introduction when you still have time. Ultimately, it's up to you. What do you prefer? After the introduction or at the end? Tell me in comments. Let's move on to the body paragraphs. Write 2 body paragraphs. Occasionally, you may have 3, but in most cases 2. Never write only 1 body paragraph. To get band 7, you must logically organize information. It means you need to find a logical way to split information into your body paragraphs. In this task, it's easy. I described the first chart in body paragraph 1 and the second chart in body paragraph 2. And my body paragraph 1 is: the US seafood imports increased from about $6 billion in 1986 to over $10 billion in 1996. Over the following 10 years, that amount doubled and crossed the 20 billion mark in 2016. Despite the past growth, it's predicted that the trend will change, and in 2026, the United States will receive approximately $2 billion for US seafood products from abroad than it did in 2016. Here I've described the first chart. To get band 7, try to show a wide range of vocabulary, vary sentence structures, and avoid repeating words where possible. For example, I named years in the first sentence in 1986 and in 1996. In the next sentence, I simply wrote over the following 10 years. I've already mentioned that it's okay to repeat words seafood imports in an essay about seafood imports. But you should still use alternatives when you can. For example, in this paragraph I've written that amount doubled instead of saying seafood imports doubled, or the trend will change instead of saying the imports will decrease. In general, use words like an amount, a number, a level, a trend to avoid repeating words like seafood imports in your essay. I also used a linking phrase, despite the past growth, to refer to the previous sentence and tell the examiner that something different is coming next. I often get a question, how to use linking words naturally, and that's a perfect example of how to do it. Here is my body paragraph 2. In regard to the geographical split of imports, the 3 countries that dominated the market in 2016 were China, Thailand, and Canada, which respectively imported 28%, 23%, and 16% of the seafood. The imports from other countries, including Indonesia, Vietnam, and Ecuador, constituted 1/3 of the total annual seafood imports. Here I started with the linker in regard to. In regard to the geographical split, it shows what this paragraph is about. And it helps to smoothly transition between paragraphs. That's important. Then I talk about the 3 largest importers. That's what's important, to describe the biggest changes, the highest numbers. But in our case, we only have 6 countries on the chart, so I named the smaller 3 importers later in this paragraph. But sometimes you may get a chart with 10 countries. You're not going to name all 10 countries in your essay. You shouldn't. Only select the largest. In our case, the largest importers. I've heard that some people say you should select 3 largest importers and 3 smallest importers. But whoever talks about the smallest importers or the smallest producers only talk about the biggest, most important figures. What about a conclusion? There must be no conclusion in your Task 1 essay. You may write your overview after the body paragraphs if you wish, but there must be no conclusion. This essay is 192 words long, a bit on the long side. Aim to write 170–180 words in your essay and definitely not more than 2.